The SEC is some of the most highest priced coaches in all of college football. Who's overpaid? Who's underpaid? Who's getting a bargain? Time to get the squad together.
You're talking ball with the SEC squad. From Alabama to Tennessee, from Georgia to Oklahoma, from Auburn to Texas, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming SEC weekend. It's the SEC squad, and we have a seat for you. Hurt feelings and thin skin are prohibited. Squad up, you're part of the SEC squad.
Oh, yeah, welcome into the SEC squad. Sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and join us as we get you ready for another week of the SEC offseason. And today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. If you're ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed, head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched up with your expert. On today's show, we welcome in our panel. We've got Zach Blackerby, host of Locked On Auburn, Stephen Willis, Locked On Ole Miss, Clint. What's your last name, Clint?
Shamblin. It's Shamblin.
Sorry, you didn't put it on the screen, so
he's just Clint.
You're just Clint of Locked On Bulldogs. John Miller, Locked On Mizzou. Brad Kellner, new host of Locked On Longhorns, and John Neighbors from Locked On Razorbacks. Gentlemen, welcome in. How are you? And pose the question. We got some high-paid coaches in the SEC, but I think it's time we start to do an audit, right? Like, it's tax season. Maybe we start doing an audit and going, all right, is this guy worth this money? Or there are some guys that deserve a little bit more? So I figure we hit on the 10 highest-paid coaches currently in all of college football and kind of figure out what you guys think. But we'll start. There is a tie at number 10 with many coaches at the $9 million mark. And I think we'll have some opinions on this one. Of course, we've got Marcus Freeman in there from Notre Dame, who just made it to the national championship. But the other three guys, all from the SEC, and they include Ole Miss's Lane Kiffin, Kentucky's Mark Stoops, and Missouri's Eli Drinkwitz. I'll just throw it out to you guys. Are all three of those coaches worth $9 million annually?
Lane Kiffin is worth $15 million annually. As much money as he's making Ole Miss right now. Yeah, whatever he wants, he can have. It's good. It's not my money.
Can Ole Miss afford $15 million a year?
It depends on if the rich guys keep deciding to be interested. And right now they are. As long as we're winning, they're going to do it. As soon as we stop winning, just like everywhere else, it's going to slow down, and then they might struggle to find the amount.
I think Missouri's just about in the same spot as Ole Miss, really. So that's kind of interesting that Kiffin and Drinkwitz make about the same kind of money. Both of them are huge trolls on the internet and in press conferences. Really, Lane Kiffin's just a little bit more of a handsome version of Eli Drinkwitz, let's be real.
Yeah, he's the Daniel Tosh version.
That's right.
One is a way better troll than the other, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, can we all agree on that?
Which one?
I would think Lane Kiffin is.
Lane takes that one running away. Drink is trying to catch up. He's playing the role of a troll, but he can't do it.
I don't know. The costume changes. I think Drinkwitz does have the advantage there.
He's the coolest.
What was that microphone?
I was going to say, I came in hot.
Yeah, they don't have real microphones
Will Ferrell
in
and our
Arkansas.
gas tire gave him the mic.
What's going on there,
Got a hot
John?
mic
You all
in
right?
there. Hot mic.
Say something else, John.
Something else.
Whoa.
Why does it sound so bad?
Drums.
You probably need to do a countdown or something so it can get down.
It's like Travis Scott hitting Cody Rhodes in the eardrum.
Look, we might ask John Neighbors to do the home run announcements here.
Do not do a Chris Berman right now. I beg you, do not. Of that list, I used to think Stoops was the dude. Like, I gave him a lot of props, and he fights in the phone booth every single year against Kirby Smart, and he loses every single year because he doesn't want to get blown out, so he plays to just cover the spread. But my gosh, that is, talk about the lamest of lame ducks in the SEC coaching circles. That dude wants to get out in a hurry, and they want him out. I don't know why they're still in that relationship. He should not be in the top 10. That is an embarrassment.
The flip side about it is Kentucky was over Calipari for years, and we're trying to find any way to run that man out. And Mark Stoops making enough money and getting just enough influence, maybe decided to get them to big boy a little bit. And now Calipari's at Arkansas. Maybe that is a reason that he's worth $9 million, because it's not really results based on the field.
I think the timing of Stoops was interesting too, because he took over Kentucky when Florida was historically down, and Tennessee was historically down, and then they both start to trend back up Florida's still working to kind of get to the point where they once were, but I think at that point, it kind of started to expose Stoops a little bit. So props to him for getting his bag, but I think the timing of it really messed Kentucky up.
And he is a Texas A&M legend.
Oh, my favorite Aggie coach of all time, gentlemen. I mean, a legend.
It was about 8 hours, I think he was going to be the A&M coach. But it is funny. I mean, you talk about expectations. He came in there, and Kentucky, I mean, look, they were throw a parade if you get to a bowl game, and he had a couple of 7-6 seasons and won bowl games. And then in 2018, he gets to 10-3, and they're like, oh my God, wait, we can win 10 games at Kentucky? So here comes, the parade and the big contract extension, all that. And yeah, now it's like he goes 7-6, 7-6, and they're kind of like, yeah, we like that. That's, but now it's becoming like, oh, that should be the bare minimum at Kentucky. So he himself, by winning, has raised the standard there. But you're right. Being a top 10 highest paid coach in all college football seems a little bit much.
He won when everybody else was down. He hit the players he needed to when everybody. I think he timed it, not only timing wise of the rest to get his payday, but to win those games that he did. It was a really weird time for Kentucky to come up with some of the players that hit on them, having no quarterback just for years. I mean, literally running out a wide receiver to play quarterback. And he did fine with that, but it's not long. He doesn't have the system to do longevity. He can't do the play calls. He can't get the guys in place. The structure's not there. So yes, great on him getting the opportunity, but man, he's not long.
And props to him for one thing. When it became more likely that he went to the Citrus Bowl than Calipari got them to the Sweet 16, that is an accomplishment at Kentucky.
It really is.
Let's touch on the guy at number 9 real quick. Brian Kelly comes in at $9.9 million. Now, part of this is not. Of course,
you want to talk about him. Of course, you do.
Look, right, wrong, or indifferent, the guy deserves to be criticized for having not gotten LSU to the playoff yet, much like some of those other guys. I mean, I put Drinkwitz and Lane Kiffin in that category. Lane Kiffin, look, 9-10 wins is awesome, but you got to make the playoff eventually. That's the deal here with the 12-team playoff. But Brian Kelly's making $9.9 million. And when you look at what he's done at LSU, I feel like we kind of glance over it a little bit at times. Like he won 10 games, 9 games. Like that's pretty damn solid. But he does have to take that next step to be a top 10 highest paid coach in college football. Would you guys agree?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I would. It feels like a big year for him too, right? Garrett Nussmeier, the Heisman favorite, and FanDuel and a few other Vegas sports books right now. I mean, this feels like the time for LSU to get over that hump. And of course, his 3 predecessors all won national championships in Baton Rouge, so we know what the standard is. So yeah, it doesn't seem like a very patient fan base right now. And BK, the fake BK, has gotten close a couple of times, but it sure feels like 2025 is a massive year for him, or those calls for his head in Louisiana are going to get louder.
It feels like to me, go ahead.
The Jaden Daniels stuff, hindsight is not going to be kind to Brian Kelly.
You're right.
I fear on that one.
Oh, interesting.
Nope, not at all.
Well, he was special that year. It's just the defense was historically awful. Like it wasn't just bad, historically awful. If they had just an average defense that year, they're making the playoffs.
It's like y'all switched with Ole Miss. Y'all literally said, "Hey, let's trade places, trade uniforms," and that's what they were over like just instantly. Because all of a sudden you had no defense. We had 4 or 5 years to where Ole Miss went down to Baton Rouge and LSU was putting 63 points by Ed Orgeron on Ole Miss because Ole Miss had no defense. And the LSU is like, hey, we want that defense.
And the thing with Brian Kelly is, like, of course you're right. Kiffin and Drinkwitz not in there either. But I think that's all like comparing a 25-foot par putt to a guy who's, got a 3-footer for birdie. Just no comparison.
I feel like that was going to be really good. I feel like that was going to be really good.
I like the Masters coming up. I'm all for that. I'm just pissed off that Georgia has G-Day during Masters week, and then it all goes. I think, it's real rough. LSU, to me, is like the equivalent of the Oakland A's in baseball or the Rays in baseball. Like, there's these teams, they get so much recruiting in. Brian Kelly is not needed to LSU. Like, I don't know how this is even a thing. You talked about Ed Orgeron, one of the worst coaches to ever win a national championship in the history of the sport. LSU can get anybody they want to stay in state, and they can just do fine with the guys. I don't know why they're paying BK so much, truth be told. Go get a young up-and-coming guy that can just keep the program kind of steady. Players are going to play, and that's what makes this overpaid. You don't have to pay Brian Kelly. You could get an Ed Orgeron replacement and be in the national championship competition.
Yeah, I will say that money they're paying him was what it cost to get him away from Notre Dame, and Scott Woodward wanted to line a big fish. So it's not like they've given him a raise since he's been at LSU. Like, this is what they paid initially.
I'm glad you said that, because I was about to ask, did he get an extension or something after he won the West his first year?
This was just the price of getting him. But yeah, I mean, when you say the last 3 coaches at LSU all won championships by year 4, this is year 4 for Brian Kelly. I mean, if look, Nick Saban did it and he set the precedent. But when Les Miles and Ed Ogeron can do it, everybody's going to be looking at Brian Kelly going, bro, you can't do what Les Miles and Ed Ogeron did. Granted, landscape's a little bit different. The conference is a little bit tougher now, but it is a 12-team playoff now as opposed to the BCS when 2 teams got in. So
is it tougher?
The conference is tougher. Yeah,
I don't agree with that. I don't agree.
You don't think Oklahoma and Texas the 16-team conference makes this tougher?
No, like Oklahoma. Come on now.
Yeah,
Listen,
don't throw us together, Gordy. We're not on that level right now.
You're not actually, Brad, because Oklahoma won 10 games like every year for like a 6-year span. Texas wasn't. So, Oklahoma is actually a little bit better in terms of what they've done the past decade.
I thought Texas fans talk about the history. I didn't realize this was an Oklahoma thing now. That's on me.
Listen, it's nice that Texas got to join the SEC when it's at its weakest and have some success, but they still haven't won anything yet. But here's the deal. The SEC, in my opinion, was in its prime back in 2010 to 2015, even into 2019. And that whole span, that's when it was at its best because of the coaches that you had. And I brought up this point a few weeks ago, I guess a few months ago at this point, where I'm like, I don't see any other coaches really besides Kirby Smart and maybe one other in this conference that's going to win a national championship with their respective school. I just don't see it happening. But back then, you had Les Miles in LSU. You had Nick Saban in Alabama. You had Gene Chizik, for crying out loud. I should say Cam Newton in Auburn winning a title. You had Florida with Urban Meyer. You had Steve Spurrier over at South Carolina. James Franklin was at Vanderbilt. Dan Mullen was at Mississippi State. I mean, these were just it was at its best. And right now, I still think it's tough, but I don't think it's maybe at the top tier level that it once was, where you have 4 or 5 different schools, different coaches that could win a national championship. I think it's actually less than what it was before.
I think you're dead on, because this coming offseason, just watch out for vacancy upon vacancy in the SEC for a bunch of these guys we're talking about right now. Heads are going to roll after this next year. And by the way, BK, you said Texas fans don't know history. Well, they would have to be fans for more than 2 years to have any history of their school that they cheer for. So that's hard for them.
Wow. God.
How long have you been a Texas fan? Oh, since Arch.
Yeah, since Arch Manning. He's here, right? He's a Manning. He has that last name, right?
Since his commitment. Yeah. I didn't even like Texas before then. I don't even know who Charlie Strong is. Never heard of that guy.
You guys hold it right there, because when we return, we got to get to the rest of this list. You talk about, some openings may come. We might have some coaches who are on the hot seat in the top 10 highest paid coaches in college football. We'll talk about that next. Back to the squad show in just a second, but ever check your bank account, wonder where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment? It's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. Surprising insights on Monarch Money. When you start using Monarch, you're going to realize just how much you're spending on food delivery. It'll make you want to budget smarter and save more. And instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Go take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com or code Locked On College for half off your first year at Monarch Money. This episode also presented to you by our friends over at Factor. If you've been looking to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. You will love how Factor will take the stress out of meal planning. If you try their Protein Plus meals, you're going to find they're packed with flavor and will keep you full all throughout the day. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege, 50 off, and use code LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnCollege50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Continue with the squad here. We're talking about the coaching salaries. Of course, this has all kind of been updated here with one guy at Oregon who just got paid. We'll get to him in a little bit. But, guys, getting back to the list, number 8 in all of college football is Bill Belichick at North Carolina. I won't spend any time on him, but $10 million a year, that's what it took to get him away from the pros and into college. We'll see how he does. But coming in number 7, it is the Nick Saban replacement, and that is Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, making $10.25 million a year. I think it goes without saying, guys, this is a monster year for Kalen DeBoer at Alabama.
Things are going so well. Things went so well his first year.
Yeah, especially when you don't sign any recruits in the state, and that's always a good sign.
And brag about it.
Yes,
it's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Yes.
Well, I, for one, am terrified of Kalen DeBoer because in my first year as a Texas fan in 2023, his Washington squad beat my Longhorns in the college football playoff. They actually beat Texas in 2 bowl games in a row. So I know year 1 for DeBoer in the SEC didn't go according to plan at all, but maybe it's my UTSD kicking in. I don't know. I'm still a believer in Kalen DeBoer finding a way to get things right. Obviously, he's got massive shoes to fill, but I do think Alabama is going to take a step and get back into the college football playoff next year.
Yeah, the more I think about it, I told a couple times ago, I think Alabama is the second likeliest odds to win the SEC, get in the playoff, and do something behind Georgia this coming year, because I think that OC hire was just massive to the whole thing. Shame on him for trying to put Milroe into a box last year. That's on him. That was a horrible coaching decision. I don't know what he was doing. If he gets his guys, gets his system, he is dangerous. I completely agree with that.
It's going to be all about Ty Simpson or Keelan Russell, whoever's calling the shots. If Alabama gets quarterback play, they're going to be good because they still have the dudes that Nick Saban recruited over there. If they don't have quarterback play, you're going to see what happened this year.
There's not a lot left, though, Steve, and be careful with it, because when you look at the recruiting, I mean, like, look, and DeBoer, there's also this factor, too. There have been really good coaches that have come to the SEC, and it's just eating them up, and it's proven that they're not cut out for this level. So, you know, I'm watching who's our Illinois coach, John Neighbors, Brett Bielema, doing a hell of a job at Illinois. Just wasn't cut out for the SEC. He got eaten alive at Arkansas.
Yeah, yeah, he can do all he wants up there. There's a lot of beer and a lot of fried food that he can eat and have fun with that too. But
and he can pick fights with Shane Beamer.
Yeah, which as always ends well when Bielema gets in a fight with somebody. But you know, the thing about Bama though is, you know, I know it's not the you know, everyone's got a tough schedule when it comes to the SEC, but I am going to be curious about it because they have to go to Florida State and against Wisconsin. So you're talking about 2 Power 4 teams that are not in the conference that they have, in addition to going to Georgia on this year's schedule. They still got Tennessee. They got to go to South Carolina. They got LSU. So they got some really tough games. But I'm just saying, guys, the one guy that knows how to beat Alabama is Gus Malzahn, and he's the OC over there at Florida State. So just be watching. Just be watching.
I was going to make a Hugh Freeze comment, but carry on.
I just wanted to stand on the record that I compared Kalen DeBoer to Brett Bielema. Coming in at number 6 on this list, we've got Lincoln Riley at USC. He makes $10.1 million. That won't be happening much longer. But how about into the top 5, guys? At number 5, Steve Sarkisian over at the University of Texas, not Texas University, as the Aggies would say, making $10.8 million. It feels like 2 straight playoff appearances. Sark is highly paid, but very well compensated for the job he's done.
Yeah, and he's gotten contract extensions and raises in back-to-back years. I mean, obviously, it was a decade and a half of suck for Texas football, and Steve Sarkisian has done a tremendous job in his 4 years here in Austin. So he's earned those raises, but obviously now he's got to take the next step. He's got to get over the semifinal hump. He went from 7-win Sark, which was the anti-Steve Sarkisian moniker for him for years, to now semifinal Sark. So he's got to find a way to take that next step. Obviously, there's going to be so much hype surrounding this team with Arch Manning under center, but that's it. I mean, Steve Sarkisian's done a great job, but You can argue he was the biggest reason why Texas lost to Washington 2 years ago, and his play calling at the goal line against Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl was arguably the biggest reason why Texas lost to the Buckeyes in the semifinal this year. He's got to take that next step and prove that he can be a big name coach. So John stops giving me trash about Texas not winning anything as of late.
This is just this is not a troll. This is an honest question, because I gave Lane Kiffin his flowers this year for his beatdown of Georgia. That was the marquee for me, that he took a step up in the rankings. I respect Lane. Now, what's Steve Sarkisian's biggest marquee win while at Texas?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question, right? Because the Longhorns, look, I'm not biased enough to act like Texas had a tough SEC schedule last year, all right? Daddy Sankey, we call him Daddy Sankey because he was so nice to us last year. He gave us a gift. I would say Clemson in the first round of the college football playoff this past season. I think that's a bigger win than Arizona State in round 2. Obviously, that game was a lot tougher and tighter than we wanted. I would really say, though, the regular season win at Alabama in 2023 is probably the most marquee game that Steve Sarkisian has won. Now, that was non-conference early in the season in 2023, so the stakes for that aren't the same as the stakes in a college football playoff game. So you can't say he hasn't won any big game. You can't say he hasn't beaten anybody of note. But the bar is raised, and everybody knows the resources that Texas has and the expectations around here. So he's got to add a few more of those to his resume. And he'll have 2 chances at Ohio State to open up the year, and obviously a trip to your place, Clint, to take on Georgia midseason. One of those games needs to be a win. Otherwise, some Texas fans might be asking some questions about Sark in these big games.
Yeah, high implosion chances in Austin this year because of all the hype that's around Arch Manning. If his name's is Arch Davis, if it was just Arch Davis, they would say, hey, Texas could go 8-4 this year because a game at Ohio State, a game at Georgia, a game at the Swamp, and then Oklahoma and the Red River. That's always a situation.
Yeah, and if Austin Simmons, if his name was Austin Manning, I'd be picking Ole Miss to make a run to the playoffs. So
yeah,
you're right. Name carries a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We're into the top 4 guys, and there's only one SEC coach in the 4 highest paid coaches in all of college football. Dan Lanning now comes in at number 4 in this list at $11 million a year at Oregon. Dabo Swinney at Clemson makes $11.5. Ryan Day, reigning national champion, I still laugh when I say that, at Ohio State is number 2 at $12.5. And Kirby Smart, number 1 in all of college football at $13.2 million. Just a quick thought here, guys. Dan Lanning at $11 million, done a great job, but needs to break through, win some playoff games. But 2, I think that pay is more about keeping him away from some of these SEC jobs that are set to open coming in the next year.
That's Phil Knight calling his shot, is what that is.
He ain't coming to the SEC. That man has lockdown of the Northwest, the Pacific Northwest. He's got all the money in the world. He's got all the facilities in the world. Phil Knight has said, I will give you a blank check. I want a championship. Go make it happen. Dan Lanning is not, even if he's courted by somebody, he's going to say no. He's got his perfect situation at Oregon. And no home roots really going to be calling home for him. He's a king up there.
And I think he's earned it too. Like I think Dan Lanning is an outstanding coach. I think he's an outstanding recruiter, and I do think he will get a championship at Oregon at some point before it's all said and done. So I think he's certainly worthy of that salary.
Yep.
Yeah, from your lips to Danny Cannell's ears, right?
How about Clint? Kirby Smart. I mean, highest paid coach in all college football. Can't even get back to a championship game in 2 straight years. What's going on there?
What's going on is that we had just the worst offensive line and the worst wide receiver group that I have seen at Georgia since being a fan. And I know Chris Connolly is in that group down below at wide receivers, and I'd rather take that. John Theus is still doing a false start right now. There is a flag on the field somewhere doing a false start. Catalina was the transfer that was our other. It was just an embarrassment, and yet we were soft. We got soft, and it was the war of attrition of transfer portal taking hit after hit after hit on depth. We saw a lower amount of that and more guys coming in this year, DB, safety, and wide receiver, notably in that. But yeah, I actually think this was Kirby's best coaching year because of all the deficiencies in this roster, namely Carson Beck, who is one of the worst head cases at quarterback we have seen in a very long time.
Yeah. He just got his Lambo stolen.
Surely going to Miami will fix all of that. So.
It will fix all of that. He will be more focused and more in tune in Miami and South Beach. That's what I hear from people that move there.
I think all the TikToks that he's making with his significant other, it can only help him as a quarterback.
Yeah.
Correct.
I know Miss Cavender came out and said he didn't go to Miami because of the money.
Yeah.
You know, must have just been the
first college kid ever that didn't do something because of a girlfriend.
Hey, when we come back, guys, we talked on the top 10 highest paid coaches. What about some of the lower paid SEC coaches? Should some of them be more highly compensated? We'll touch on that next on the SEC Squad. More with the Squad in just a second, but this message is from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. And look, taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering and worrying some more. And now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find your every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. So they will get you all of the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Go get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. SEC Squad rolling on here, and fellas, let's get into it. Hitting on some of the SEC coaches who might be underpaid. Let's run through some of these other coaches in the SEC and what they're making, and you decide, are they overpaid, underpaid, just right? How about at the very bottom, over at Vanderbilt in the city of Nashville, Clark Lee making $3.19 million. Now, a year ago, I think we would have all said it's probably too much for Vanderbilt, but what he did last year, I think you could make an argument he deserves more.
Whatever Jerry Kill's getting, he should get more. He's the most underpaid person on that staff.
Is it worth asking the question of like, hey, like what can Clark Lee do without Diego Pavia? Like, is it okay to like say, hey, hold on, ask me in 2 seasons? Is that a fair response to that question?
I think we're still doing the same thing with Michael Penix and Kalen DeBoer, right? Like,
yeah,
you do it without him.
Yeah, I think Diego Pavia's lawyer should get at least half of what Clark Lee is making this year. I mean, the fact that guy is back for his 16th, 17th year of college football is impressive. But look, you give Clark Lee credit for going out and getting his offensive coordinator. Like you don't think New Mexico State when you think of SEC football, and to go find a guy from the fake Aggies to go play and to play as well as he did. Things worked out well. So yeah, Clark Lee should still be at the bottom of these salary conversations, the bottom at SEC coach power rankings, but he did a great job last season. And Zach, like you said, we'll see if he can keep things rolling this year and beyond Diego Pavia's career as well.
Off topic a little bit. Doesn't New Mexico State, Wyoming, and like Oklahoma State share a mascot?
Okay. Like it's the same person who just travels to each
Cowboys, I think he's saying.
No, it's like the Pistol Pete, the real thing. They actually, like, 2 schools have to pay Oklahoma State money for copyright infringement.
Oh, wow.
No clue.
That's dumb.
No clue. Anytime one of y'all bring up something about New Mexico State, I just get frozen in fear. And I can't believe that's not where you went, Steven.
Well,
so
I was going to go to your coach here next, Zach.
Sure.
So,
yeah, let's move off to New Mexico State subject.
So the 15th highest paid coach
is sleep tonight now.
Jeff Levy makes $4.2 million at Mississippi State. That's very this is a big year. He's got to take a step forward there. Yeah. But from 14 on up, you've got Shane Beamer, Sam Pittman, Hugh Freeze, and Mike Elko, and Billy Napier, all making from around $6.5 to $7.5 million. So it's a logjam of Napier, Elko, Freeze, Pittman, and Beamer. Is that just right for all those guys? Is there somebody in the group that doesn't belong there?
Like Mike Elko has a reputation of being a really good football coach, and his record says that he is. But I can't get over the fact in the bowl game, he said at the end of the season, well, our guys just didn't know how to play zone defense. And USC was able to take advantage of that. And it's like, what? You're a Power 4 school and you're not playing zone defense, and they can't do it? Because that feels like a coaching type deal. I don't know if it's the DC or what's going on, but I at least have a little bit of a red flag about Mike Elko.
Yeah, and I think Sam Pittman's salary is just all his 401k retirement for this year. Isn't that right, John? That's all that's going into. Isn't that correct?
Certainly hope so. I mean, it's weird to see Pittman in that list because you're just talking about a guy who, I don't have anything personal against Sam Pittman, but he went 6-6, 4-8, and 6-6 in 3 straight years. Doesn't exactly just scream a coach that deserves close to $7 million a year. So that's really disappointing and depressing. Thank you, Gordy, for bringing that up. Appreciate you.
You know, hopefully my connection is back here, but Shane Beamer at South Carolina, and whether he deserves to be in the same conversation as Eli Drinkwitz, Lane Kiffin, etc. The reality is, I'm kind of shocked that after this past season, he hasn't already gotten that extension to get him into that $9 million range. I think if I were his agent, I'd be going, he absolutely deserves it. Give it to me now. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet.
They're in a prime spot to have a good season this year too, especially if, Lenora Sellers is even 70% of the quarterback that he's being talked about him being going into this year. He'll certainly be in a prime spot to get an extension for sure. And then I guess the Hugh Freeze angle of this is like, we're about to find out. We're about to find out if it's worth it or not. It will be very clear one way or the other after the season if he is worth that salary.
It's been very confusing up to this point what Hugh Freeze is worth so far. I haven't had any empirical evidence whatsoever.
Well, it's so strange to me because Auburn has been awesome off the field. They've done everything that you could ask as far as building the roster, and now you look at it, it's like this roster is really good. I think Auburn's got a better roster than 8 or 9 of the teams that they'll play this upcoming season. But they had a better roster than Arkansas last year. No offense, John. They had a better roster than Cal last year, and we all know what happened in Oklahoma on game day for sure because they were so injured. And it didn't matter. So we'll see. We'll see if it comes together or not.
How many wins this year keeps Hugh Freeze off of the hot seat?
Off of the hot seat or keeps his job?
Let's do both. What does he have to do to get fired this year, and what does he have to do to have red light warning lights into next season?
Wow, man. I think 7 of 5 keeps the job, and I think there's going to be people that that would want him gone even if he goes 7 of 5. But I don't know if I don't think I agree with those people.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah, that's yeah, I mean, six wins or less. I think you're right. He's gone. It's funny though to talk about those guys who are all kind of in the same salary range. Yet, okay, Shane Beamer, everybody's happy and optimistic. Sam Pittman, not so much. Some Arkansas fans are kind of out on. Hugh Freeze probably split, right? 50-50, half probably hate him, half are optimistic. Mike Elko feels like they're pretty optimistic, and then Napier. Brandon Olson's not on here, but that almost feels like a little bit like Hugh Freeze 50-50.
50-50?
Half are optimistic. I know a lot of Florida fans who still hate him. Don't believe in him.
I am cheering on those who believe in him to keep on winning the battle. I don't think they will for much longer. Napier's a joke of a coach. Brandon called for his job after 4 weeks in or something like that. The whole chat rooms, every Florida fan hated him early on in the season, wanted him gone. And now with DJ Lagway and that shoulder issue that keeps popping up, Billy Napier is sweating at night because that arm is his only hope of keeping a job.
In a related note, how many people here had any idea that Lane Kiffin was going to stay at Ole Miss 6 years?
No. I
would have had the under. The last coach we should throw in here, I kind of glanced over. Brent Venables is 9th in the SEC. He makes $8.1 million, but that kind of feels like this year is going to figure that out, right?
Underpaid. Like lifetime contract is warranted for Brent Venables. He's done a tremendous job. That program is going in the right direction. Like they need to show him a little bit more love to make sure he doesn't leave to go to USC or something like that.
Yeah, I guess that is the route from Oklahoma to SC.
Well, and here's the thing also, you forgot about the person who actually is the most highest paid among all these people and is the biggest winner, and that is our boy Jimmy Sexton, because he literally represents every single one of these coaches that we just mentioned. So kudos to him.
Yeah, at the end of the day, he's the winner no matter what, because
even
if the coach gets a buyout, he's still getting his cut. So
yes, he is.
Not a bad gig.
Good for him. Yeah.
So wrapping up, fellas, what did we learn today? Well, we learned that it pays to be Jimmy Sexton, pays to be that guy. The SEC is very low on elite coaches currently, but then again, I think all of college football is low on elite head coaches. So when Ryan Day is the second best elite coach in all of college football, we got problems.
I'm embarrassed for the sport that I cover. That's embarrassing.
Is he the second best coach in college football?
No, he's not.
I don't think so.
No, he's not the second best coach. He's the second highest paid coach, but he's not the second best coach.
Is he a top 5 coach?
I
My
wouldn't
gut
put him in
says
top
no.
5. No.
Top
Look at his
10 is
record,
probably
though.
where I'm like, yeah, I think
It's
so.
like 12
Honestly,
games a year.
He screams Gene Chizik. He screams Larry Coker. That's
This man
that's
knows.
what he
All right,
is.
let's don't like throw Gene Chizik around like it's a bad thing.
Well, I'm just saying that Cam Newton won that national championship, not Gene Chizik.
Okay.
Ryan
You still
Day's
got him though, Steven.
years.
Yeah,
He
but
is-
Ed Orgeron had Joe Burrow.
How about Frank Solich? Anybody
He
go
still
back that
got
far?
Joe Burrow. That's not a bad thing.
Frank,
Yeah.
it's a pull.
Ryan Day is 70-10 in 6 seasons at Ohio State. He's lost 10 games,
Yeah,
and he's won a national championship.
That he's the only
doesn't
good
feel
team
like
in
it's
that league
him.
he plays. It feels like Michigan, and Michigan's like won 4 straight or something.
God, Hugh Freeze has lost 10 games in the last 2 years.
Wow,
You could have picked it. Like you could have picked so many.
straight of the week, straight of the week.
All right, gents. Well, we'll leave it there. Appreciate you guys
done.
getting together with the SEC squad. The crap talking continues next week right here on the SEC Squad Show. Remember to follow and subscribe to your favorite SEC school. We'll keep you covered with your favorite team every day throughout this offseason. And don't forget, I'll have you covered with the entire conference each and every day. Locked on SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day.